So at this time, we're opening up for questions. So if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. I've got a couple to start us off with. First off, I was really excited to be on the panel and hear what you both are doing. And I know we talked before, a lot of great colleagues of mine are working with you, which is awesome. And I was going to start, actually, Robin, with you. To me, and probably to us on this panel, it always seems like a no-brainer. Like, these products are here to save people time and money. Mm-hmm. Why don't people use them, right? What's the barrier? What do you think is the key reason why, not everyone's using products like Transect today? Is there a perception problem, or is it just an awareness problem? What do you think can really maximize use of your product and others in the same space?
Yeah, I think it's. I think it's because the environmental consulting industry is a really old industry. It's been around since the 1970s. When we passed things in the U.S. like the Clean Water Act and the Endangered Species Act. Oh, hi. We're going to shift this way now.
Join you over here now.
Perfect. When right now, if you say the word environmental to a developer, the little thought bubble that pops up is a person. It's been a person forever. Mm-hmm. What we're on a mission to do is make sure that all of those developers know that there is a better way to do it through technology. Obviously, that's why we're all up here, right? Mm-hmm. But what you said was music to my ears. We could swap out a few words, and it's just permitting timelines, compress it. Bottlenecks. So I think it's an awareness problem at this point in time. But like I said, we've had the land race before. Like I said, we had it in oil and gas 10 or so years ago. And I was around for that, and it was pretty crazy. And so that's why we're trying to get the message out now, is because we really don't want that same kind of thing to happen kind of with what I see being the land race pretty soon, to try to meet all of our energy goals.
Well, that's the benefit of time, too, because now 10 years later, we have products like yours and others that can be used to help with this problem. Maybe we've learned something.
I hope so.
From 10 years ago, and we can apply that going forward.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And I wanted actually, Michael, to go over to you, because one of the challenges that we faced with Solar Apps that I think is something that your work will also solve is rural electric cooperatives often don't have a lot of resources also. Right. And for them to participate in the decarbonization or transition, they're going to need to know what's happening on their grid. And so it seems like your product is perfectly suited for those that don't have the amount of resources, but can still use your products, hopefully more cost effectively, to achieve their own decarbonization goals. Would you agree?
Well, I agree. Rural electric cooperatives, they do a lot of work with small staffs. So we have rural electric cooperatives and IUs both as customers. And I think one of the things we say is we're radically collaborative. Even where we go, we work with the IT team, the OT team. We bring our own skills to help them accelerate. And I tell the people I'm working with, I work for them. We're there to help them. We're software as a service. So the service part of that is also helping them achieve that goal. In the same way, IOUs tend to sometimes have complexity, or they get jammed up. And so if someone has a vision to try to achieve something in a large company, they may find that even though there are a million resources, there aren't any available to them to actually achieve this goal of doing something with the DER, and they're putting a lot of energy into maintaining the status quo. So again, having that service, that ability to lean in and help them, helps them achieve that new strategic gap. Smaller in the larger context of the IU, but still an important service for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we talk at NREL quite a lot. We work with a lot of rural cooperatives, and it's always trying to find ways to help them navigate what they've been, subjected to, or what they have to work with, right? You're only able to work with what you've got. And so if we can help with automation to make it easier, it's a no-brainer. Again, sort of a mantra of this, at least I'm going to say, is a no-brainer, as long as the products are as accurate as needed for the task at hand, right?
Let me say, I think when we work with small utilities, we find that we do best in utilities that are making a transition, right, from flat rate, perhaps fossil fuel-based power to more DERs. If you've just got a ton of clean hydropower and you're never going to change anything, getting greater visibility into your grid on that is not going to be all that large a benefit to you. But if you're in some place where people can just start installing solar right or left, or batteries, or you're doing it yourself because you want to capture tax credits or do something, that transition then leads to complexity, and our software helps you manage that complexity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'll open it back up again to the audience for folks if you've got questions for the panelists today. There's one.
Hi, my name is Fred Stotzel. I have a loud voice, so I usually don't need this. Fred Stotzel, Seoul UNESCO. My question is, are any of the regulatory agencies looking at using these tools? And the reason I'm asking the question is because I just went through a process of permitting 21,000 acres of land, and the problem we had was convincing the local county that we didn't have all the answers, right? And they were very skeptical, and we were trying to create flexibility, and they were trying to lock us down, and so my question, at the end of the day, if the regulator is not understanding what the data is out there and how good it is and and what flexibility we need. So I guess my question is, to what extent are we trying to help regulators have tools to do a better job regulating the industry?
I'm wondering, Robin, do you want to think through that
Sure.
one first, and I'll go after?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an awesome point. And we have actually, we're in a contract with NYSERDA, for instance. We are trying to help the regulators kind of streamline the way that they get their information out to folks like you also, right? I mean, the reason why consultants existed and why Transect exists is because there's a gap between what the regulators want you to do and what they need you to know and how you actually get that information, right? Like, how do you marry the two? That's why we're here. So if we can use automation to marry the two, that's what we'd like to do. We'd like the government to start, different agencies to start using automation more as opposed to kind of holding it in PDFs or, I don't know, their own internal whatever they got going on, right? It's like a secret, my precious, right? It's so annoying. We'd like to start working with them to do that. Now, like I said, we do have some government agencies that we've talked to that are interested in using Transect. That's where we'd like to go next. But we also kind of, on a different side, we have some lenders in Transect, right? So I know it's different than government versus lenders, but we have solar developers who are trying to get lending from lenders, and they are using Transect to double check to make sure that that whoever's going to build it has checked all the boxes. So we do ultimately want Transect, and I'm sure you guys do too, in your respective ways, to be kind of like a bankable type document, right? And we're already seeing early elements of that.
And just to add on to that from the solar app side of things, we are marketed directly to local governments in particular, and it's still, there's both an awareness problem, which you've already articulated on your side, which certainly applies to ours, but the other problem is a risk aversion, so a concern that the product is not going to be what it says it is. And so, government entities are always provided, hey, here's the next best software thing, and it ends up being a disaster for them. People have long memories of disasters and shorter memories of successes. And so you have to navigate that whole challenge as well. And it becomes, as you said, you're starting with NYSERDA, you really do go agency by agency and say, hey, look, here's this product. Here, let me prove to you that it works. And this is how it works and what it does and why you should consider it. So it takes, and that's part of the, it takes a while for these tools to be adopted, even though they could be so beneficial and useful. It takes that time to educate and ensure that they are satisfied with what the product does. And we've certainly found that as a hurdle. But as you get the first few, people are like, oh, NYSERDA is using that? Oh, interesting. OK, now there's someone else in my same peer group that I could actually talk to and get their perspective. And we found that's been helpful also. But it's still a case-by-case education process.
Yeah, and I think the piece of it is that with automation, it's so much less error-prone, right?
Yeah.
Like in my space, having a consultant put together a PDF doc and all, we're relying on their memory to remember everything that could possibly be wrong with a site or something like that. With automation, we put that information into a database one time, and then we just query it in eternity times, right? So at some point in time, I think governments will realize that when it comes from automation, it's actually higher quality.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a huge part because it's the same thing with on our side, we're doing these compliance checks for code, which, jurisdictions, person is reviewed number 500 and it's Friday at 4:30 or whatever, they may miss 5 or 6 compliance checks in that, but still approve it because they've got also come in on Monday, and have another 100, the same thing on the due diligence side. So that's the only thing you got to do is prove that it's doing those checks and doing them every time, and that can then give people that peace of mind.
Yeah. Got a little ways to go. Sorry, no magic bullet yet.
Yeah. Other questions from the audience?
I can tell a really bad joke if you'd like.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay. So, yeah. I'm just gonna do it. Whatever, we got some
ready.
time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is an animal joke because we deal in endangered species. So this, it's loosely related to this like tiny little black and red beetle that lives in Oklahoma. It's called American burying beetle. All right, so what did the dung beetle say when he walked into the bar?
What did he say when he walked in the bar?
Is this stool taken?
Oh.
It's so bad. I know. It killed before the pandemic, though, and I think it still kind of does. So, it's an acceptable or not acceptable? Totally acceptable? Oh, sweet. Nice.
We should have put it on the slide to close us out today. Well, that concludes the end of this session and actually concludes all of our education. So we ended it with the best joke. I'm happy with it.
Can you tell
anyway.
poop jokes? It's fine. It's happy hour, right?
I'll take it.
Close enough.
Speaking of happy hour, we also encourage everyone to come to the reception this afternoon in the expo hall because the expo hall is still open. Of course, all the speakers will be kind of milling about here at the end should you have questions for us. But thank you all to the panelists and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.